Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, show designed to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist in private practice. I have a high percentage of my patient population is ADHD, either children, adults, or families with ADHD. And I'm also the father of a child with ADHD. And we are, where we live, we are at the end of the school term, the spring term. So now summer has officially started. In your area, it may be a little later, I don't know, but there are some things you need to be aware of when you have an ADHD child. Number one is that although they will fight it, they really need routines. Routines protect them. They make them feel safe. And it's important when summer starts that all the routines that they've depended on all year don't just go and disappear, okay? Because that will cause you so much trouble, well, through the summer actually, because they're not going to respond all that well to that much freedom. And then in the fall, when you try to get back to the routine, it'll be a huge jump. And that's not what you want. So you can be a little more flexible, but you need to still keep the basic routines. Okay, I mean, the sleep routine is probably the most important one. And you just, I know for a fact that some families just go, well, it's summer, just let them do whatever they want. And if they want to stay up all night, fine. They can sleep the next day. Can't be doing that, okay? You will pay for it in a big way if you do that. You need to have your kid on a routine. The routine, it can be a little more relaxed over the summer rather than what it's been like during the school year. I mean, especially if your child has one of these ridiculous early times, they have to catch the bus at 6:30 or something like that. Yeah, that's a bit much. But they still have to have a routine. They still have to have something that's predictable, that gives them, that gives them a certain amount of self-discipline, and that is this in all the other areas of life. When meals are served, that has to be a pretty much a routine. Having everybody together, at least one meal a day, is a routine that is really important for a family. And what they do during the day is also important. Now, I know that summer is, especially for families that have got both parents working, is a real hassle time. But it's also a time of opportunity. Now, one of the problems, I think, with school is the way stuff is taught. And kids totally don't get the idea that math is a useful subject, that you're going to use it your whole life. Well, I'm never going to use this. What would I ever use algebra for? What would I ever use geometry for? And then all of a sudden they're carpenters and they suddenly realize that they have to use it a great deal every day that they work. And I think the problem is that a lot of times the way subjects are taught in school don't emphasize the utility, the usefulness of a given subject, and they don't really emphasize that it can be fun. I mean, especially like science. Science can be a lot of fun. You can get vinegar and baking soda together and blow corks into the ceiling for hours. And they'll think that is great stuff. Then later on, they can maybe pick up that there's an interaction between an acid and a base that releases CO2, da 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 da. But the first exposure is that it's kind of fun, it's kind of amusing, it's kind of interesting. And that's pretty much all of the subjects originally could be interesting. We just emphasize so much that you got to pass the test that we lose the fun a lot of times, and I think that's sad. And I'm sure any teachers out there are like, yeah, I agree. I mean, since we've gotten into SOLs, I'm not having nearly as much fun teaching as I used to have either. But in the summer, they don't have to pass tests. They don't have to be on the clock all the time in terms of having to learn something by such and such a time, or else there's no tests. I mean, some of your kiddos will be in summer school, I'm sure, but other than that, if they're not in summer school, then that's a great opportunity to restore the fun to learning. And almost any museum, historical site, zoo has children's programs where your child gets a chance to hold on to a horseshoe crab, or pat a stingray on top of the head, and that's it. Of course, in my area we have a lot of water and a lot of water animals, so that happens quite a lot. But I mean, the opportunity is there quite a lot, and that's what you want. You want to spend some time, make some emphasis in the summer on restoring the fun to learning. That is really, really, really important, and it's important. It's we have made learning a job. We've taken all the fun out of it. We've made it something difficult and that you have to work really hard at, or terrible things will happen. And, a lot of that comes from the parents, but a lot of it is the way the system is set up. And your kiddos, truthfully, your child could learn everything. It takes 8 years of elementary and middle school to learn. Probably pick that up in a year and a half or so. Because if you think about it, all school years start out by repeating from the last year and then adding just a little bit on top of it. So you don't want to get all helicopter parent about your child's academic progress, especially early on, because they can catch up. They will catch up if they're motivated to catch up, and that's the trick. And part of what you're doing in the summer is restoring the fun to learning. And however you do that, I mean, like I said, almost any museum or animal park or zoo or historical site has children's programs. So going to a lot of those is going to be kind of an important thing. Well, it'll definitely be an important thing for your child over the summer. And then, okay, we've covered routine, especially for sleep and eating. We've covered putting the fun back in learning. Exercise. Okay, it is important that your child get exercise. An hour of exercise is good for about 2 or 3 hours of calm and focus for your ADHD child. And it is important that they get that exercise regularly. it's sort of like Michael Phelps, the swimmer. He has significant, severe ADHD. But boy, when he's training, he's focused, and it carries over. So you can graduate from high school and go to college even. But you have to have regular exercise, and it's important that they get that. I mean, I see an awful lot of kids who all school year, they don't even get out of the house. They go to school, they come back from school, they sit down, they do homework for an incredible length of time, and then they go to bed and get up the next morning. And then on the weekends, they play video games. So it's important. Your child needs physical movement. His or her body needs physical movement. And certainly his or her little ADHD brain needs exercise to stimulate the neurotransmitters that are so important to being able to focus and pay attention. That is brings me to the last one, and that's video games. Now, I am not one of those who's, video games are the devil's tool or any of that stuff. Matter of fact, nowadays we're seeing there are TV shows where you sit there and you watch people play video games. I don't particularly get involved in that sort of thing, but you certainly can. There are also many universities are starting e-game teams, teams of people who play other colleges in different video games. And they even give scholarships for this. Now, my baby boomer brain has a little trouble with all of that, but that's the way it is. So it's not like you can say, oh, well, it's just a waste of time. It's not good for anything. Because, frankly, they can get quite a lot out of it. But you still have to have some control over it. I mean, too much of anything is bad for you. I love chocolate, but 5 Hershey bars probably would be not a good thing for me every day. Or even one day, come to think of it. But so it's the same thing with anything. I mean, whatever you're doing, if you do too much of it, it's probably going to end up being bad for you. So, moderation in all things, and that has to include video games. So, it's okay that they've got the latest hot-wired, supercharged system, but you don't want them to be doing 6 or 8 hours of video gaming every day. That will train them for nothing but doing video games for 6-8 hours every day, and you won't be able to handle school when you do that. And matter of fact, school will seem so slow to you that it's going to be boring, and you will have more troubles adapting and adjusting. So, yeah, let them play, but get a little bit of control over it. There's no exact prescription for it, but a couple hours you would think would be plenty. That's up to you to decide, personally. But you have to know that, one, it's not all bad that they play video games, but two, like anything else, you need to have some control over that. You need to be able to say, no, it's too much. I've done enough today. And if they can't do that themselves, and they probably can't, you need to give them an assistant in it. And you need to do it early. You need to set the limits early. What is called the safety signal hypothesis, which basically says humans can adapt and adjust to anything that they know is coming. Even your ADHD kid can. So make sure they know at the beginning of the summer that you're expecting that they don't just spend all summer sitting on the couch or in their room playing video games. You need to have set up, playing with my tripods here, but you need to have them understand that there has to be a limit to it. And you need to get to the technology that lets you know that the limits are being followed. Okay. And that's what we've got for today. You need routines, especially for sleep and eating. You need regular exercise. You need to do some fun learning kinds of things. And you need to have some limits on the amount of time they spend gaming. And when we get to the first part of September or the end of August, whenever school starts for you, it won't be quite as big an adjustment as if you just let them run wild all summer. It isn't like that lets them work it out of their systems, because the system is bottomless. They can go and go and go. So set some limits. Set some routines. Keep routines. Routines are vital. They absolutely help with all the other aspects of ADHD. Okay, that's me for this week. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this has been Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show that tries to make the world safe for ADHD. And remember, ADHDers are by definition outside-the-box thinkers. And outside-the-box thinkers are the ones that change the world. So, see you next time, and enjoy your ADHD child.